That's a wonderful surprise. I appreciate it, Rob. Thank you so much.
Of course. So happy birthday.
I'm so happy. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering. The time they were enjoying themselves, rocking out there in America, was the time that we are undergoing our own version of the Holocaust here. It was
yes.
actually the season of the Biafran genocide, yes.
Biafra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So this is a first time for me as well. And I hope I'm going to be able to teach it correctly. And if you cannot do it, don't be disappointed, because I also cannot do it. I could just tell you about it, but I can't do it. However, if you could do it, you would become one of the wealthiest people in the world.
Wow.
And that is a very deep idea in Jewish teaching called teleporting. Teleporting is how to move from one part of the world to another within a second. How to be able to go from Nigeria to Jerusalem in less than 1 minute. Now, of course, it sounds crazy, but I'm going to share with you that it's a very, very deep and proven idea of the Torah. And I will even explain to you how it's done. It doesn't mean that you can do it, but at least it goes in here. That's the first step. And then you don't know. Maybe, you might all be sitting around together in your room or in your Beit Midrash, and secretly somebody among you has taken very good notes on today's class, and they really, really worked on it. And all of a sudden, poof, his chair is empty. It's like, whoa, what happened? Where did he go? And then 2 seconds later, poof, he's back in the chair with a falafel from Jerusalem. So it's all very doable. And we're going to take a look at how to understand this and how to really use it on a practical level as well. I just hope that you're still there, because I lost the video. So I don't know if that means the line has dropped or not, but I'll keep going. So the idea, there you are. The idea in Hebrew is called kvitzis haderech. Kvitzis is likapetz, means to jump, and derech means the road. How to, instead of just going like this, to jump the road. And this has to do with a very deep understanding of time and space. But it begins, the examples in the Bible are, for example, one of the first times it is seen is by Abraham. Abraham is going to war with just a couple hundred people against 4 kingdoms of tens of thousands of soldiers. But he's not afraid. And he goes against them. And it says that his army traveled in 1 day what should have taken many days. So that's the first example where they jumped through time and space. The next example is by Yaakov. Yaakov was leaving Israel, and he remembered he did not pray at what would become in the future known as the Temple Mount. And he was able to jump through time back to Jerusalem in the matter of a minute. The Medrash brings another story. When Yehuda was confronting Joseph, and they did not know it was Joseph, they thought he was the king or the number 2 man of Egypt. So it says that Yehuda made the cry of a lion, and blood ran down his eyes, and the hair on his chest turned into iron and ripped through his shirt. And one of his nephews back in Canaan heard the cry, and within a minute, he was standing right next to Yehuda. There's another example. When they were coming to bury Yaakov in Hebron, in the Machpelah, Esav comes and he says, whoa, you can't bury Jacob here. I'm the firstborn. I'm going to be buried here. And Naphtali jumped back to Egypt, got the document, and jumped back to Hebron. Things which in today's world are considered impossible. In the same way that in their world, if you explained about an airplane that could take 600 people and all of their suitcases up in the air and fly around the world, they would also think maybe that is impossible. So we don't understand them. They don't understand us. We don't understand how King Solomon moved his armies, 10,000 at a time, on flying carpets. We don't understand these things. But here's the thing that we do understand. And this is the secret about being a Jew. If somebody said to me, what is the bottom line of being Jewish? Like if you take everything, what is it? I would say to really be Jewish means you do not believe anything is impossible. If you believe something is impossible, you have put a wall in front of your brain. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is possible. It doesn't mean that you or I will know how to do it. But in our heart of heart, if we really believe that there is no such thing as impossible, we can do everything. We can do anything. The Talmud says that Reb Dosa ben Horkinus' daughter came to him right before Shabbat. And she said, we have no oil for lighting Shabbat candles. So her father said, no problem, use vinegar. The daughter said, vinegar? You cannot use vinegar. Vinegar does not light. It's not oil. And the rabbi said, what are you talking about? The same God who makes oil burn will make vinegar burn. Now, you can't just say that with your mouth. You have to say that with your soul. If you really, really believe that with your soul, then you realize that oil, yes, on one level, oil burns because in the world of nature, that's how oil works, and vinegar in the world of nature doesn't work. But if you come up here and you understand that both of these things are the will of God, then you can actually move that nature over so that vinegar will burn. Another example, Shimshon. I think in the world they call him Samson, the mighty Samson. We've spoken about this once before, but I'll just repeat it because it's very important. Samson, who at the end of his life pushes down an enormous building, killing thousands of people and unfortunately himself. How do you push down a building? How do you do that? So our sages tell us that Samson was not he didn't lift weights. He wasn't a Hercules. He was a very little guy. But he understood, not here, he understood here that to do this with your finger is impossible. It's impossible. There's no way I can do this. The only way I am doing this is because God is enabling me to do this. So the same God that's enabling me to do this is the same God that, if he wants, can enable me to push down an entire building. So this is a very, very important idea because it leads to what we call positive visualization. to be able to have a dream and to convert the dream into reality. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I just want you to know that this idea of jumping through time and space, at least according to our tradition, it didn't end in the days of the Talmud. There are stories of this happening even as much as 150 years, 200 years ago. There's the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov, who had a huge wagon, and he used to put his students in the wagon, and they would fly with this wagon all across Europe. There's stories of very holy people who were able to take what we call the gartel, the special belt that some people wear during prayer, and they would throw it on water, and they could walk across the river by just walking on this little rope, which wasn't even attached. It has to do with bringing from your mind into your DNA, into the essence of who you are, that you believe so true, but not stupid belief, but intelligent belief, that there's nothing that you cannot do. There is no such thing as impossible. I think we even talked about this also in one of our earlier classes by karate, when a person is breaking boards or breaking rock, and the person who breaks the board, for him or her, the board is already broken. He is just showing the other people that the board is broken because they don't believe him. But he knows 100% the board, the rock, whatever it is broken. Moshe knew that the sea was going to open. There was no doubt about it. Ripping apart the laws of nature. It's in your power. It's in your DNA. You've got it. You got to find it. You have to exercise it. You have to develop it. And you have to do it step by step by step by step. Because when you climb a ladder, if you get too anxious and you jump and you miss, you don't go back to where you are or were. You go boom to the bottom. So you have to go each one, and one, but you can do it and you can grow. In fact, I will tell you this about learning Torah. There's a beautiful story which I'd like to share with you. It's called The Difference Between a Scholar and a Stupid Person. Now, you might think that a scholar, or what we call in Hebrew, Talmid Chacham, a student of wisdom, is how smart you are. It's what we call the IQ, right? Some people may be like Einstein, have great IQs, and other people might just be nice, but you know, they're like, knock, knock, nobody's really there. So that's not at all how we as Jews look at it. We believe that wisdom is a gift from God. And therefore, no matter how a person may think that they're not so smart, they can change everything in their life. They can go from being somebody who was known as not so smart to somebody who's unbelievably smart. And how do you do this? So here's the story. Two people, one who is called smart and one is called not so smart, come into the Beit Midrash. They both have a book. They have the same book. They're in the same class. They both open up the book and they learn one page. They come back the next day, they learn a second page. They come back a third day, they learn a third page. So far, there's no difference. They both learned 3 pages in 3 days. Here comes the difference on the 4th day. The wise one reads from left to right. Remember, Hebrew goes right to left. But the wise person reads from left to right. And the stupid person reads from right to left. What does that mean? Watch. The wise person comes in on the fourth day and he reads from left back to what he already read. He looks at these 3 pages. He goes 1, 2, 3. He says, wow, look, I have learned 3 pages of something I never knew before in my life. Look what I've gained. Look what I've done. The stupid person goes from right to left. He says, oh my gosh, look how much more I could never do this. I give up. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. It has to do with how much you love yourself. If you want to become great, do not listen to what other people say about you. Listen to what you should say about yourself. I am going to become great. I am going to change the world. I am going to make this a better planet. You know, in New York, we used to say, fake it until you make it. Meaning, oh, you know what? I'll tell you a true story. I'm sure you never heard this story. This is an unbelievable story. And it's a true story, which is why it's unbelievable. Not just because it happens to be with one of your Jewish brothers. Have you ever heard of a man who's a film producer by the name of Steven Spielberg? Does that name sound familiar at all?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. One of the most famous movie producers of our generation. So I want to tell you how he got started. His mother told me this story. He went to college, University of Southern California, majored in film, and he graduated. He didn't know anybody. One day, he put on a tie, he put on a jacket, he took a little briefcase, and he went to one of the Hollywood studios. And he walked in as if he owned the place. He walked in with such a sense of confidence that even the police guards didn't stop and ask who he was. He just waved, good morning, walked in. They didn't know who he was, but he looked impressive. So they said, good morning back. And he started to walk around I think it was Warner Brothers, walking around the studios and walking into a room where all the producers were, until he found an empty room. And he had made a little sign that said Steven Spielberg producer, and he put it on the door of the empty room. He quickly found a table, he quickly found a chair, he brought him into the room, and he sat down. That's it. He never worked for Warner Brothers. I could be wrong, it might have been Paramount, but the idea is the same. He just came with his name, came with a tie, sat down, and within a day or two, somebody knocked on his door and said, hi, Mr. Spielberg, are you a producer? And he said, yes. He said, well, look, I'm working on a film right now. I need an extra producer. Are you available? So he took his empty notebook and said, hold on, let me check. He didn't say, oh, yeah. He said, oh, well, Tuesday, I don't know. How about Wednesday? I could do Wednesday. And that was it. He got his first job, just like that. Just like that. Today, you go anywhere in the world and you say Steven Spielberg, and people will know who you're talking about. Just focus. Don't let people discourage you. Don't, when somebody says, you'll never, just ignore it. Ignore it. And just keep one more page, one more page, one more page, one more page. Until one day you'll look back and you'll say, wow, look what's happened to me. I'll give you an example. If you take a little baby and you show the little baby a lake, but not of water, a lake of milk, and you say to the little baby, I'll hold you, you go down and I'm going to hold you into the lake of milk, and I want you to drink all the milk in this lake. People, are you crazy? Are you crazy? But you know what? That little baby, when he or she is 98 years old, will have drunk so much milk in their lifetime that is enough milk to make the milk of that lake. So when you go ring by ring, page by page, you continue to grow. You might not even see how you are growing, but that attitude makes you into a smart person, has no idea, or doesn't matter what you have from your birth. Wisdom, bless you, wisdom is a gift from God. And if you open up the vessel to receive that, it will happen to you. Okay, let's come back to teleporting. And then we'll see why this ties into Shema Yisrael and how important this idea is. So we said that this leads to the idea of positive visualization. You know, there's an expression in English, if you will it, it will happen. They also say, if you build it, they will come. It was a great movie about a guy who built a baseball stadium and everybody said it's never going to happen. And he just built it. And once it existed, people came to it. By the way, just to share with you, in high tech, this is something I teach a lot to people who are starting startup high tech companies. What happens is a person has a brilliant idea or a creative idea, and many other people try to discourage him or her. It's stupid. No one will ever use it. Nobody's ever going to want it. I went through this in my own life. I was one of the, I hate to say it, but I was one of the developers of mobile phones. And I developed an idea of mobile commerce where people today do it all the time. You pick up your phone and you can buy something on Amazon and it's in your door in 3 days. It's right. That's mobile commerce. But when I first started this in 1998, people would say to me, are you kidding? People only use telephones to talk to people. That's what a telephone is for. So I had to tune that out. I had to ignore them. And if you are an entrepreneur, if you have a creative idea, the more that you could develop it on your own, even make a little something. Yeah, you know what? Again, I don't like to talk about myself, but maybe it will be helpful to you. When I wanted to show mobile commerce, there was no infrastructure in the mobile phone world for anybody to do what I was talking about. So I had to create a make-believe. And I will tell you a story of when I won probably the #1 technology award in America in the year 2000. We were in California. There were something like 2,300 companies reviewed around the world. 60 of them were invited to the conference. We were one of the 60, and 10 of the 60 were invited to do a presentation before 1,500 people, including people like Bill Gates. And you had 6 minutes. They had a traffic light on the stage. And the minute the light went red, poof, they cut off your electricity. That was it. You had 6 minutes. And so when it was our turn, I said, look, I don't want to go up on the stage. I want to do something different. I want a little teeny stage on the side. So they called us out. And instead of the lights going up on the big stage, suddenly a couple of the lights came on the little side door. I came in and we had a Coca-Cola machine with a big sheet over it. I jump up on there. Everybody's turning and looking. Wow, why is he over there and not up on the big stage? I had one of my people in my company who was a former officer in the IDF, big guy, wearing like black sunglasses and a little hearing thing here. And he's standing at the door looking around as if he's from the Mossad. And I jump up on this thing and I say, whoa, I've just come to America. I'm in the middle of the desert. That's where this was in California, in the desert. I'm dying to get something to drink, and I don't have any of your stupid American dollars. What can I do? At that moment, whoop, the sheet comes off. I said, oh, I take my phone. I go beep, 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 beep. And I made the Coca-Cola machine ring. Coca-Cola machines don't ring. I made it ring like it was a telephone. And I had put a little video screen on the front of the Coca-Cola machine. And back in Israel, we took a woman, gave her a warm hat, scarf, earmuffs, gloves, and a little microphone. We opened the door of the Coca-Cola machine and we stood her. So you saw all the Coca-Colas behind her. And we made it as if she was inside the machine. So we call, and suddenly you see this woman inside a Coca-Cola machine. Obviously, she's freezing. And I say, oh, I want an orange drink. And she took the wrong drink. And I said, no, I said orange drink. And I pushed delete, and you hear her scream like, ah, across the entire room. And then she quickly takes the right drink. And in the TV, when she lets go of it, a real Coca-Cola popped out of the actual machine. And people went nuts. And everybody understood the idea. But there was no technology. It was just able to open up the minds of people to see something that they never saw before. And the rest is history. So if you have an idea and you want to live in Israel, and you really believe that, and you dream it, and you pray for it, you will be able to go from where you are to where you want to be. And the only question is time. We're going to talk now how to make that time shorter. But that's it. If you visualize it, you begin to make it happen. Okay, next step. How does this happen? It happens by understanding that God is everywhere at every moment. There are no TV commercials. There's no, okay, thank you for being here with God. We hope to see you next week. It's not like that. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. You are this close to God. Right? Think about this. If God is everywhere at every moment, you know what that means? That means tickle, 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 tickle. It means we're inside God. It's not like there's you and then there's God. It's more like we're inside. It's all the time here. The only problem is, how do we connect? How do we take down the barriers that block us from accessing this? And the way that we are able to do that is by first allowing ourselves to open our minds. I want to tell you a true story of a Russian woman who I know you can't see, but she lives maybe 15 minutes over from there. This Russian young lady, well, she's not so young anymore. She now is a mother of like 5 kids. But anyhow, when she was a young girl, she was in Russia during communism. And they used to bring in somebody to show all of the children that there's no such thing as God. So how did this guy prove there's no God? So he came in and he said to all the children, okay, I want you to do an exercise. I want you to think or feel with all of your might, what do you want from God? Just 100%. Put your head down on the table and yeah, you want a new bicycle, you want a basketball, you need sneakers, whatever, just yeah. So all the kids, 5 minutes, and they all picked up their heads at the end of the 5 minutes. And the guy says, did anybody get what they dreamed of? And all the children said no. And he said, oh, you see, there's no God. This Jewish girl who was in that class in Moscow had put her head down and she said, I want to go to Israel. And now she's in Israel telling that story. So it's all a question of what begins in your mind. However, here's the next step. How do you take your ideas, because we are where our mind is. So if my mind is in Israel, I'm already in Israel, right? You ever talk to somebody and they have a daydream? You can go like that in front of their eyes and they don't really hear you because they're somewhere else. Because the bottom line is we are where our thoughts are. So my mind is already there, but how do I get my body there? So the process is how to take an idea, spiritual concept, and make it come out in your sweat. Make it come out in your physical body. How do you do that? Step one, to realize there is no such thing as your physical body. Your physical body is just another volume of your soul. It's just like you turn the dial a little and it goes from what you might call your soul into your body. So now suddenly each time you realize more and more that your body is spiritual, your body becomes lighter. Now, how does that happen? So what is the essence of the human body? In science, it's called the DNA. Everything in living body is DNA, and DNA is wisdom. I don't know if you ever heard about this. It's a fascinating research on Google you could do if you're interested. One of the most important universities in the United States is called Stanford University in Northern California. And about 15 years ago, they tried to actually take human DNA and use it as a motherboard in a computer, because they realized that the DNA of a person can compute faster and more information than the greatest, largest computer in the world today. That means your body, if you could just learn how to use it, your body has more wisdom in it than any possible computer in the world. And as your central command, your wisdom begins to unlock and open up that energy inside of yourself, you are actually converting yourself into a spiritual entity, into a very holy entity that is no longer under the laws of nature. And once you're free here first and here second from the laws of nature, you have the ability to transport yourself anywhere. Your body will follow your mind as long as you begin with that focus. This is why, this is a side point, but it's a very important point. This is why we have to remember something. You know what? I'm going to do this a little differently. I really want you to stay with me on this. I apologize sometimes, but my problem is I love you guys so much that I just want to open up all of the water to flood you with blessings. Really, I apologize if I'm a little bit out there, or maybe more than a little, you know, but I hope that what I say I'm able to communicate. So we're going to go on a little brain journey here, but you got to stay with me, because this is really going to be like you're going to another planet. But welcome to the world of the Talmud thinking. We're going to start now with something that seems completely not related to anything we just talked about. And then if I can connect it for you, you're going to go, oh my gosh. Watch. Hold on, I'm going to change to a different channel. Whoop. Okay. So, So on the laws of Shabbat, there are 39 basic forms of work that create the underpinning of how to observe Shabbat. These 39 forms of work are the same 39 that are used in building the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. Not the Beit Midrash, the Beit HaMikdash, the Jerusalem temple. Meaning to say that in the same way you do these physical activities, 39 of them to build the Beit HaMikdash, the temple in the physical world, by not doing them, by actively not doing them, you build the Beit HaMikdash of Shabbat. The Beit HaMikdash of Shabbat exists in time. The Beit HaMikdash in Jerusalem exists in space. They use the same 39 algorithms. These 39 algorithms were used by God to create the universe. Okay. One of the 39 is a prohibition that does not make logical sense. And that is, under the right conditions or wrong conditions, if somebody were to carry something like this from inside their house into a public area, they are actually violating Shabbat. Changing domain. Why? How? Where? Not going to go in that because we're not learning Shabbat now. But the part of this process requires a couple of functions. A, it requires hakira. Hakira means it's lifted up from where it is in my house. And then two, it needs hanacha. Hanacha is it needs to come to rest in the public domain. So for example, if I did hakira, I lifted it in my house and I went outside, but I never stopped moving. And I came back into my house, although it might be a problem, I've not violated Shabbat on that level. It requires both lifting and then coming to rest. Now, let's go to a wild story or example that the Talmud uses on Shabbat. What happens if I am standing? Oh, or I was afraid maybe it was too weird. And you like just, boop. All right, so just to, I don't know where I lost you, so I'll go back for a minute. It requires two stages, lifting up and then putting down, so that if I lift up, but I walk out of my house and I just keep moving, I don't put it down, and I come back in my house and now I put it down, it's okay. Because I didn't, well, it's not really okay, but it's okay on that level because I didn't take it from inside to outside. Now, the Talmud gives a wild question. What happens if you are standing on the side of a river or ocean and a boat goes by? And you do the hakira, you lift the item from where you are, and you throw the item into the boat so that it comes to rest in the boat. But the boat is moving, right? The boat's moving. So it's like I said before, if I take this, I go outside and I move and I move and I move and I move and I come back inside, okay. So again, I did the lifting, but did it come to rest? Landing in the boat, is that called coming to rest? Okay, ready for this? Only a Jew could think this crazy. The answer is yes. Why? Because the boat is not moving. The river is moving under the boat. but the boat is standing still. I'll just say like this. Try to imagine this crazy idea. You know that the world is always turning, because if it stopped turning, we would all fly off of the world within a split second. The world is always turning. Now imagine if you could jump in the air, and so as the world turned, when you landed, you would be in another place, not jumping. Just go straight up, allow the world to turn, and then come back down. You would be in a different place. You have to begin to allow these ideas to grow inside your mind. It's a different way of looking at reality, but it'll change everything you understand. The idea is the boat is not moving, but the water is moving under the boat. How come the boat went from New York to Lisbon? Because the world turned until Lisbon was under the boat. So when you understand that idea, you now understand that the relationship of movement through time is not necessarily need to work in a natural way. It can work in a supernatural way. So therefore, as you are able not to connect on the world of nature, but to connect every moment to the world of God, your whole ability to change the laws of nature are granted to you. The walls fall, no matter how difficult they may seem. All you have to do is read the Bible. Look at the Jewish armies. Let's look at the story of Gideon. I don't know if you've read this story in the Bible. It's in the book of Judges. Gideon is coming up against an amazing army, and he has very few people. And God says to him through the prophet, you have too many people. What do you mean? It was like 10,000 people coming up against 1 million soldiers. And God says, it's too many. Cut it down to 3,000. Why? Because God wanted the Jewish people to realize that victory in war has nothing to do with your weapons. It's from God. So Gideon has to narrow down the army to almost nothing, and they have an amazing victory. And it wasn't once in history. It's all over Hanukkah, Purim. It's all the time. 6-Day War, 1967. It's all the time. It's just a question of how we get there. So the process of how to begin to make this happen is saying Shema Yisrael. As I said probably last time, Shema Yisrael has 248 words. These 248 words are connected to the 248 parts of your body. And every time in your mind, you are talking about becoming echad, one with God, and you are using these 248 words, it is coming down through your entire physical body. You are inoculating holiness into every aspect of your body. And the more that you do that, if you keep that focus on your dream, maybe your dream is you want to come to Israel, whatever that dream is, if you focus on that, you will be able to get there, and the speed in which things will happen as if they are dreams, other than the way that we normally live within the world. So I just wanted to take a big detour today. I know we didn't go more into the details of the Shema Yisrael, but I just thought that it's something which is a really important thing to know. And we also know from King David that in the end of days, which in my opinion, we are rapidly approaching, things will happen like dreams. And in a dream, right? Have you ever gone to the bathroom in your dream? Right? Have you ever had like in the middle of your dream a 10-minute timeout because you're in the bathroom? Never. Never. Have you ever had to actually walk to really like you would if you was, right? No. In dreams, you're here, boop, then you're there. So this is the power of the dream. You can make the dream happen. Look, there was a great man in the United States known as, unfortunately, he was killed, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King said, I went to the mountain and I had a dream. And if you have a dream, that's the whole gift of life. And as long as you do not believe that anything is impossible, you can make the dream happen. So I bless you that the dream happens for all of us and for you, and that you come together in a holy and quick and blessed way, God willing, to only see good things soon. And it's really nice to see you guys. I missed you over the last 2 weeks. So glad to see you all again. And I hear wonderful things from your other teachers. In fact, I've even been told that next week I'm going to give the whole class only in Hebrew because you're studying so well. אז אם כן, ממש תודה רבה לכם על הכיפאק, הכל בסדר, ממש.
אמן.
ביי חבר'ה, ביי, להתראות. ביי.